In this help file, we're going to discuss setting up administrators and members to your site. Just to first briefly explain what the difference is, when we're looking at content within the site, we're able to, Centralpoint's able to tag certain content for public members versus private members. In this case, we see this record here is reserved for members only, so we can't gain access to this record. So we have a couple different rights to consider when we're looking at members to the portal. Additionally, we have those people who contribute content to the portal. So they're not readers to the portal, they're actually content contributors. So if we were to log in here to the client console, these people have administrative privileges to add content and manage content to their portal. So when you look at Centralpoint's audience tree and the n-tiered structure of Centralpoint, of course we have many different microsites and many different groups. So often what we want to do is set up an administrator maybe just for a department or just for a microsite. Conversely, we might want to set up those member privileges on the front end. So we have a module under site architecture called administrators. And if we click on administrators, you'll see that we have about 20 administrators set up currently for this portal. We're going to create a new one. And here we're able to define the username of this administrator or member. And I'm going to call this administrator John Doe. Now the display name is the name that we might use to welcome the member when they log on. So we might just say John, because it would say welcome John to the portal. The email address of John Doe might be jdoe@test.com. And you'll want to initialize the password. Now the reason we're doing this is that normally when you set up a password, it will be automatically encrypted. They will have the opportunity to change the password once they set it up. But because you're setting it up as a primary administrator, we're going to actually say initialize password. This allows us to override traditional security settings and define whatever password we want. So we're going to call it John Doe 123. Now there's another field here that says copy password to configuration. And you'll notice over here we have a tab called configuration. So when we submit this record, it's going to take this and save it. This is an additional, seemingly unnecessary step, but we include that because we must override traditional security settings when you want to manually set someone up. So it is an important step. Now, if this person were an administrator of content, they might be free to post directly to a website, meaning they have no review. If they had review, meaning if there was editorial review involved, we may want to set up their administrator, in this case Brett, who will receive all submissions for approval. So Brett will receive those records, review them, approve them before they go live. In this scenario, we're going to say no editorial review is required. And we're going to say that this particular user has the ability to maybe delete records. He may also have the ability to release data, meaning he can post data to the site, release data, or remove the data that he's put in. We might also say which of the sites is he in charge of. So we may say, okay, he has private access as a member to the main site, but really his job is to keep up with the microsite known as Regional Hospital. So this fella, John Doe, can only log into Regional Hospital and post content at that level and perhaps downstream. So he may have the ability to manage content at the hospital and all of his departments. Finally, we may need to select what type of tools he has when he logs into the regional hospital. So, we don't want to give him access to everything in the regional hospital, like the design. I mean, we could give him access to every single tool for regional hospital by clicking on this icon here, or we can uncheck everything. So if we want to cherry pick very specific tools that he has control over, we can go through the menu here and say, okay, I want to give him control over site architecture, as you see here on the left. And we are also going to give him access to navigation. This means that he can manage navigation records within the regional hospital. We may also want to give him controls over, let's just pick one here and say, we'll put him in charge of news. And this is an important feature, you want to pay attention to this. Because news lives under a category in the navigation called content, we must also select content. Let me just explain that. Okay. Now the reason I did that is that news lives under content. So now that we have all, now we could fill out all the rest of this information, what are his browser preferences, how many records per page might he want to see when he's logged into the console. We can manage all sorts of things, maybe his or her contact information. And we're going to save this record. So we now have, by the way, while we're in here, you'll notice that news, the module I gave him access to, is under the category of content. So always be sure when you're setting up a new site administrator, please select the modules that belong under the select the parent category as well as the module. Another thing you may want to note, if you're having difficulty with this process, is that the audience that you're putting John Doe in charge of, in this case the regional hospital, we need to have all of the console navigation turned on. Sometimes when you create a new audience type, it will not have these on by default. You will need to activate the console navigation for the site that you would wish to put him in charge of. So let me show you what we've done. Since we've set up John Doe, we did two things, if you recall. We set him up as a member to the main site, which means if we want to, we can give him rights to log into the main site. So here we go. John Doe 123, if I've done it correctly. And we can now create custom welcome pages. It says up here, welcome John Doe. And if we look, as we saw earlier with those records that were locked out because we weren't logged in, now you see we have access to all of the records and we have full privileges as an online member. So that's as if we're setting up a user or an administrator of the site that has some type of privileges to access content. Now, what we're going to show you next is, let me just return to the home page. We're now going to log in as John Doe as if he were a content manager. So if you recall, he's a content manager only to the regional hospital. And just so everyone understands what I'm talking about, here's our main hospital or portal. Well, the regional hospital might be a portal under the main portal. So this might be a brand or a department or a division that John Doe has control over. Okay, I just thought I'd backtrack on that so you can understand that. So I'm going to log in to the client console. Now I'm logging in as if, the primary administrator is logging in. I'm just going to use different credentials. So I'm going to say John Doe 123. And when I've logged in, it's going to, oh, I see. I think we're going to select regional hospital. We gave John Doe more control than just regional hospital. So I've selected, and this is actually good for the demonstration. You might have administrators that can manage more than one facility or more than one hospital. In this case, this administrator has access to many. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to work on just the regional hospital, and then we're now going to post a navigation record to the regional hospital. And you'll notice that when he's managing content, whatever the title or the page information is, down here, he only has access to the regional hospital and its children, just as we specified. Or we may manage news articles as it relates to the regional hospital. So because he has no editorial review, we're going to put in sample article. Some sample information just so you can see this thing make it to the front end of the website. Test. Maybe it's a particular type of news article like a press release, and we're going to release it. So therein you see how we can set up all these different administrators. Now I'm going to log out here. We're going to go visit the regional hospital. And we're going to look at the news, which I just posted that new news article. And we should see right here, sample article right here, has been released by John Doe. And of course, the layout of this we change in Module Designer because all of our pages adhere to the template established for the Module Designer. So I thought this might be a helpful little video on setting up administrators and members to your site. Another thing you might want to note is that often we will have forms set up for users to apply to become a member. And of course, these membership registration forms could have all sorts of questions and demographic options, and what are you interested in receiving? Perhaps you want to receive email newsletters. So typically forms management, so you understand how this system works, we do not want to log in as John Doe. We want to instead log in as sample view. Okay. So we're now logged back in as the primary administrator. So basically, when we set these forms up for membership registration, and that's a whole other help file you might want to view in the the online help. There's the video for that. But when we set up a membership form, basically that membership form is collecting information in that form, and then when we're depositing that information, you'll notice that that is depositing into the administrators module. So basically, as those things are approved, they end up back here. So it's kind of full circle how we apply for registration and then deposit those people in here once we've approved them. So that's how we manage our membership registration. So hopefully this was helpful, and if you have any questions, please contact your production manager or the analyst working on your account. Thank you very much.